They are rolled kind of like in a jelly roll. And what happens is, remember my mica shift drawings when I was telling you what happens when you have the whole clay arranged and the minnows, and how when you cut the raised parts after using a stamp, you get like, you see like the head of some minnows and the scaly sides of some other minnows. Well, this is pretty much what happens in this effect too, because it's based on the mica shift. The ripple wavy blade, all it does is just to make you able to cut through more spots at the same time, because you can do the same thing just with one blade, non-ripple, but you'll just have to go over and over and over and do that. So what happens when you take the pearlescent and you roll it in a sheet until you get that sheen, and then you will roll it in a jelly roll like, what you will have is that from all the minnows being arranged like this, giving off the sheen, you will get all the minnows arranged in a spiral. So even so, if you would cut through this spiral, let's say you would cut like this, you would get to see most of the minnows' heads, right? And very little of the minnows' sides. But what happens when you do, and I will show you how to arrange these logs, when you do these logs and then you flatten them, partially you obtain a partial shininess, So your minnows will be arranged more like this. So when you come with a blade and you cut through them, you will still have, sorry, I did not draw properly. They are arranged more like this. So when you come with the blade and you cut through them, you will see some heads, but you will also see some scaly sides. And then as you flatten the second time, you will have a little bit more of these. Now, when you start changing the depth you cut in, you will actually get, let's say, a scaly minnow from here, then a head from here, and then another scaly minnow. And the head of this minnow will act exactly like that silver acts for the white pearl, will make almost a shade for this one that is here. And then when you come and you flatten the whole area after you do the cut, it will still keep the same position because you only do it twice, so the mica flake will not have enough time to turn to the side, so you don't see, so you see the shiny side and not the dull side. So let's get to obtaining actually the Kalyana effect from scratch. So I have here pearlescence. I have the pearl magenta, the pearl sunset, and a little bit of combinations of the violet and the combination that I made with, I think it was sunset pearl and violet, and then I also have some bright green. So I went with them through the pasta machine on the thinnest setting, and then what I am doing is to roll them all. And you need to roll them. Do not form the sausages any other way. You must actually roll them. Because if you don't roll them, you don't obtain that effect that I just drew for you. And it is nice to use all the colors, but I think that I did use all the colors in that video just because I had cane remnants, and even so I still kind of separated them by colors a little bit, because it's nicer to have the same colors here, like I have all pinks, and then just a little bit of green for contrast effect. So after you do all your colors that you decide on, and yes, you can do this just with metallics, not with pearlescence. You can use the several shades of gold with the copper. I wouldn't suggest the bronze because it's a little bit too dark, and it might kind of not show and cover up the gold. So preferably is to do with shades of gold. You can mix the bronze with some gold to get an extra shade of gold. So as you see, what I'm doing here is to plug these logs a little bit, not reduce them, just kind of get them a little bit thicker, so the contrary of reducing them, because I need them to be a little bit thicker for what I need to obtain. You still need to go with the sheet through the thinnest so you can get the maximum of shininess and the maximum of the effect. And after you do this, what you do is to make a block. So you cut these in pretty much pieces that would be relatively equal. Because what you want to obtain is layers of those mica flakes looking in different directions, but in between them to have some thin layers of shininess so that you can obtain that 3D effect. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure that I have, see, I pretty much cut it in 4, so I'll make sure that I have 3 of each cuts laying like this and 1 standing up. Now on this one I only have 3. And then I will kind of get them together, trying not to repeat too much. Not to have colors that are similar to each other. And see, I'm kind of building my block, so I already have standing up one here. I'm going to put one laying down because I have a standing up here, laying down. Let me put a standing up here with laying down and another laying down. And I guess I have mostly laying downs left, but so I will put a standing up here and another one here. So now I have a block, and I will be kind of pressing this block together as so. Now imagine that I have those mica flakes arranged in a specific way in there. And as I am doing this, I'm just pushing them against each other, but I'm not deforming or redirecting them. Not yet. Now I am going to get this a little bit thinner so it can go through the pasta machine on the thickest setting. You don't want to go too thin on this. That's definitely not something you want to do. And another thing, you only go twice through the pasta machine. So I am going once, then I will cut and stack, and then I will go another time, and then I will cut and stack. Now yes, I do want to flatten these a little bit more, but I'm not going to turn them through the pasta machine again because I don't want these layers to be too thin. You know, I want it to be a little bit kind of more unified, but I do not want the layers to be too thin. So let me trim this. Make it nice and squarish. And then I will take some silver and I will take some white pearl and put them together. And remember, these ones, you go with them through the thinnest setting. So I will be putting them together and sandwich them. Let me trim the white that's on top. And then I will get them again together through the pasta machine on the thinnest setting. And now I will be covering this so in such a way that the white is on top. Trimming. And of course I will be rolling a little bit so to make sure that the white and silver sandwich are well stuck there. And then let me get this in a close-up and do the specific wavy blade cut for you. Another thing, and please give me feedback on that, I am using a different software for recording. So if you think that this is better or worse than the other one that I was using, please leave me feedback on that, okay? Because I want to know if this, because this is a 30 days trial version, and I want to know if it is worth buying. It's not very expensive, but still, you know, I'd rather buy clay than this if it's not good enough. Okay, I have some white here. Oh well. So doing the cut, remember you must vary the depth as you cut in order to obtain that effect. And you can actually bend a little bit the wavy blade, but you go in and you start varying the depth so you can get through several layers of those stacked ones. And see, I need to go through here some more, and again vary the depth that you're going in. And see how I got different colors, and when it is going to be baked it will show. And then you do the crisscross pattern. It's okay if you go deeper in some spots, because you've seen even if you get rid completely of the white and silver layer, it will still show a lot of 3D effect. So let's create that crisscross pattern that brings up even more the 3D effect. And again, make sure that you vary the depth, because that is very important to get. The more variation of the depth you get, the more 3D effect you will get. And right now you won't be able to use it because I used several shades of that pinkish, but once it's baked, and of course I will not finish the video until I will post some baked results so you can see it better, even if it won't be varnished, because I like to resin these. I think that they get a much nicer, the shininess just brings up the 3D effect. Usually it doesn't, shininess covers details, but in this case it's all worth it. Let me get these corners. And now all you have to do is to flatten this, and it will keep the mica shift effect that's in there. Just make sure that when you flatten, you go on all sides. Okay, let me get it a little bit farther, because at this point we don't need any more the close out. Because you don't want to deform it too much. Yes, you can use other light colored on top besides white, but I wouldn't go with too dark, you know. I mean, better mix some light gold with white, or some peacock pearl with white, or something to get a very, very light color. Otherwise you won't get that shadow effect from the silver. believe me, I tried various combinations. I tried using bronze instead of silver as being darker. I tried using the graphite pearl instead of silver, and it does not. This is the combination that gives the best a 3D illusion of all. And yeah, I thought of showing you how to obtain this from scratch, because who knows, maybe someone can go in and can refine the technique, you know. So let's see it in close-up, but remember, you will not be able to see the full extent of it until it is baked because of the translucent. Let me get the autofocus off. Because of the translucent in the pearlescent, that until that gets baked you won't be able to see all the 3D effects. So I will be cutting this and making a pendant, and I will be baking it, and then I will come back and show it to you. Oh yes, another thing that I did not show you, and I told you last time to make sure and keep these because you can do stuff with it. So you have all these remnants after cutting your pieces, and then you also have all these shavings from when you cut with the blade. And what you do with these, as you saw I did on my other pendant, because they are here and you don't want to waste them, and they are not really good for another effect like this because you cannot really rearrange them the way they are supposed to be. So what you do, you make some balls out of this, and then you cover them in shavings, which can be just a little trim or a whole sheet, but the shavings will have, so you just use the back of the shavings, and they will have some of the 3D effect as well. That will just be on regular pearlescent, but nevertheless the beads will still look pretty. And then it is up to you if you want to make them round, or if you want to make them squarish, or if you want to make them beadish. It's entirely up to you. But after you cover, and not entirely, just make a little bit of a pattern. You can make even a crisscross pattern if the shavings did not keep the crisscross pattern. And you can, for example, turn this into a pretty much rectangular bead if you want, and you can have extra beads for not just for this necklace but for something else. So I will be back to show you how these are once they are baked. Here they are all baked. As I'm not putting any kind of varnish on it, as I told you that I want to resin them. If they are wet, they will still show you plenty of the effect. As you can see, for the very middle, for the focal piece, I've chosen one that had a lot of cuts. Let me make this in close-up. But okay, there you go. So you can see it's not as strong as when it's varnished, but you can still see the 3D effects. And this is how you can obtain the effect that I found from scratch with pearlescent and even with metallic clays. And as I showed you how to make the beads, this is how the beads look like. You see, if you use the back of the shavings that you get some 3D effects on the beads as well. So I hope now you understand more about the effect that I had found, and you will enjoy making it. Happy claying!